for Arfield. 1-0 Burnley. Scott Arfield. He's been threatening that recently. And all the Burnley players run to the Darwin end.
Burnley win the next ball. It's Rory now. On the outside. Decent.
Barnes! He got it! Ashley Barnes with it! What a cross from Rory! And there was Ashley Barnes! And Burnley leading the derby.
Knocks it quickly. Finds Benson in space at the byline. Can Burnley get a goal here? Back for Brownell. Saved by the keeper!
Burnley won it to the end! That is magnificent! They deserve that!
On it by Paul Teller. Off for a hat-trick.
He's got it! Hat-trick for Nathan Teller! Oh, he's on fire at the minute! 3-0 Burnley! It's Nathan Teller's day!
And Burnley are 3 up here. Fantastic derby. Here's Benson. Can he go on the outside? Comes inside. Top shot.
Oh, the goal! Manuel Benson once more! That is top class!
Burnley have done it. Fantastic. Clarets deserve the championship title. They've been the best side throughout the campaign. Burnley have won the second tier. What a fantastic achievement. The players have been magnificent.
Yes, hello and welcome along to the latest instalment of the Turfcast podcast pre-game show with me, Joe Redmond, ahead of this weekend's, well, it's not a weekend actually, is it? On New Year Day against Stoke City at Turf Moor. Obviously, we've just played Stoke. So as we'll do with the Middlesbrough pre-game show, we won't go into as much detail as what we normally would do, but we will chat about obviously how things have gone since we played them. Obviously, a decent result for Burnley at the Britannia. I do that every time at the Bet365 Stadium as Burnley win 2-0. But things have changed quite a lot for Stoke since then, haven't they? And as usual, I am joined by a fan, or in this case, a broadcaster for the opposition. It's Lucas from BBC Radio Stoke. How you doing, mate?
Oh, I'm good, mate. I'm suffering the same as you, a little bit of crimbo limbo. I don't know what day it is. I don't know what time it is. To be honest, I forget what month it is sometimes as well. So I'm really struggling with it. Just about got a little bit of something together thanks to my work schedule. Otherwise, I'd be in trouble.
I mean, I guess you kind of have to focus on it, don't you? But it's like I'm doing all these pre-game shows. I didn't even have time to fit in a full-time show from the Middlesbrough match because that was literally yesterday at the time of recording this, and now we're straight away on it. I bet people are fed up of seeing my face, but it's got to be done. We've got to do the pre-game shows. And obviously, like I said, quite a lot has gone on at Stoke since Burnley last played them. So let's quickly go through your form. Obviously, since Burnley came to town, I think, obviously, like I said just then, Burnley left the Bet365 Stadium with a 2-0 win thanks to goals from Jay Rodriguez, and who was the other one? I'm escaping off the top of my head. And Josh Brownell penalty, of course it was. Yeah. And obviously since then, just quickly get that screen back up. It's not been great for you guys, has it? Obviously a 2-1 defeat up at Sunderland, then a 2-1 defeat against struggling Luton Town, 2-2 against another struggling side, Cardiff. I bet that really was a bit of a kick in the teeth, that result. A defeat against Sheffield Wednesday. They had a man sent off as well. A defeat against Leeds. That then saw you sack your manager. And then since then, you have actually picked up a little bit, which may be a little bit of a worry for us, but it was a good result against Sunderland and obviously a good result for us as well. But yeah, it's a very broad question with everything that's gone on at Stoke since Burnley last played them. But talk to me about what's gone on at Stoke since Burnley last played you, please.
It's just gone from bad to worse. When Burnley came to town, I think the expectation was this will either go one way or another. One way being the expectation, which is probably defeat, or it will rejig and revitalise Stoke season with a good win at home against a good side in Burnley. It was just, I mean, you'll know, and everyone that is listening to this will know as well. Stoke weren't very good, and that's kind of been the tale of Stoke. Without wanting to bash the former head coach too much, it's kind of the story of his reign. Stoke haven't been very good, but they've got a lot worse after the international break. They were kind of picking up points. They were tough to beat, and then they played QPR. They played Preston, and that was just before they played Burnley. And the performances were a bit gross, not very good. They never really looked like doing anything. The the sparks they showed in previous games, it was always flashes like against Swansea, and even when they lost to Middlesbrough early on in the campaign, they weren't showing sparks anymore. It was kind of just 10 minutes of a little bit of something, and then it was just flat. And you mentioned the results there since. Just you get to a good start where you think, oh, something's happening here. Maybe they're going to pick things up finally, and then it'll just be repeated the same. To which point we were doing podcasts and sort of getting fed up of recording them afterwards because we're saying the same thing. Bright start, other side got into it, other side take control, other side win. And that was literally how events would turn out and pan out. Fans were pretty quickly getting angry because they were patient at first, waiting to see what would happen with Narcis Palak. But then I would say from the Burnley defeat, maybe just a little bit before with Preston, plenty of boos, plenty of outrage on social media. It was getting a bit nasty, a bit negative. He's such a likable head coach, Narcis Palak, but I just don't think anything he was doing was working. I think he was trying a system that just didn't work with the players that Stoke City possess. So after they lost to Sheffield Wednesday, I think that anger reached its peak. And then it was Leeds, one of your promotion rivals, at home on Boxing Day. And the mood I would just describe as just apathy. It was flat. It was an 8 o'clock kickoff on Boxing Day night. No one wanted that game, and it was against Leeds, who are class, and Stoke are not. The mood was rubbish. Stoke had a light show on, which I think they were hoping would lift the mood. It didn't. It was just all really meh. And I think that's what made John Walters, sporting director, John Coates, chairman, made them make the decision they did, because I just think they were thinking, this isn't we're not losing the fans. I feel like the fear was that they've lost the fans, because there wasn't that nasty outrage after the Leeds defeat. It was just, where do we go from here? Fans didn't even turn up for the game. I just think the reaction was just so sad. It was a sad reaction. It wasn't angry. It was sad. And I think then it was pretty clear that no matter how good his ideas were, it just wasn't going to work for this squad for Stoke City. So hence why they made the change. And I think they were just left with no choice. I don't think they wanted to make that decision.
Do you think, just to play devil's advocate, you've probably answered this question already, but do you not think it's a little bit harsh as well? The results speak for themselves, to be fair, so that probably would be why you come back and say, no, it's not harsh. We would sleepwalk into relegation, which you did look like at that point. But he's not had a transfer window. He's not been able to bring any of his own players in. I think 19 games he took charge of. Do you not think he will feel a little bit hard done to that he wasn't able to be able to put his own stamp on the team? Or do you think it's a case of, look, Stoke have obviously got to look after themselves, and it was looking like they could probably go down with him in charge?
I think all of them, especially John Walters and Narcis Palak. But I believe that the club were invested in what he was trying to do. But the problem that they've done is, to bring in Narcis Palak, they sacked a head coach that was... this is good for Stoke City, by the way. I'd say 80% of the fans loved in Stephen Schumacher. So they didn't want Narcis Palak in the first place. There's nothing on Narcis Palak. They just didn't want him. They wanted Stephen Schumacher. Stephen Schumacher leaves because John Walters wanted to go in a different direction. And I don't think the results to start the season justified keeping him on. Or rather, it perhaps justified the chance to get rid and take opportunity whilst they could win the defeat to Oxford. So he's already had an uphill mountain to climb, Narcis Palak, but they got rid of Stephen Schumacher. Before that was Alex Neil. That didn't go to plan. Michael Linner before that didn't go to plan. Nathan Jones before that didn't go to plan. Garrett before that didn't go to plan. So fans were just getting tired and frustrated. They're like, we actually had someone that we believed in. You've got rid of him. And now this person's come in. It's not working. We're not enjoying the football, because I would say the football was slow. And I think there was method to the madness in terms of the idea was the floor was going to be a little bit higher, the ceiling questionable, but it was less chance of defeat. So when they still lose games, it's almost like, well, this is pointless now, because they're losing games in a system that's meant to reduce defeat and reduce shots on target. There were so many shots on target still that they managed to pull off. Victor Johansson's been saviour of Stoke season. And so I think just the reaction from fans just meant his position was untenable. There was no way back from, I don't think, with Stoke City fans. Fans weren't turning up to games. And you need fans to make money. You need fans to show support. You need fans to get behind the team. If fans aren't turning up, then you're asking for trouble. And I think it's the Narcis Palak move maybe would have had more time and more legs to it if the aforementioned managers hadn't failed before, and if Narcis Palak hadn't come on the back of someone like Stephen Schumacher that the fans just loved. So it just it just made for a situation where I think the hierarchy, their backs are against the wall. I don't think they could have waited any longer. I think it just would have got worse. And I think they're smart blokes. They saw it coming. And it's sad because I actually really like Narcis Palak. I think every fan liked him as a person, but you need to like his football coaching, and it just wasn't working. It just wasn't working.
Obviously, Ryan Shawcross now in temporary charge. I think caretaker charge according to the Stoke City website. What's the plan then with Stoke's manager? Obviously, I don't know if judging by some of the recent appointments, I don't think even like John Walters and Stoke City know, to be fair. But is any rumours of who it might be? Obviously, working in the broadcast sort of like world, have you heard anything of potential routes that they're looking down?
So this is another reason why I think that they were kind of left with no choice with Narcis Palak, and because I don't think they wanted to do it. The conversation I was having with people around the club was almost kind of preparing for the transfer window before Leeds. I just think Leeds was like, we've got to just cut our losses here. So when Narcis Palak, before he came in, it was Steven Schumacher's gone. Narcis Palak's the guy that's going to come in. So he was ready to go. They were ready for Narcis Palak. I think this is perhaps not taking them by surprise, but they've done it sooner than they perhaps really wanted to. And so there isn't an immediate front runner. It's been reported today that Mark Robbins, former Coventry manager, has been for conversations.
Great appointment.
Yeah. Do you know what? Really split down the middle reactions from people that I've spoken to, or fans. Yeah, I think I'll be wanting to have a chat with a few Coventry City fans if that link becomes a bit heavier, because I think there's a couple of rumours and debates about why he left in the first place, and whether or not he would fit Mr. Coventry City, as he almost became, whether he would fit for Stoke City. So I'd like to know a little bit more about that, and what the truth is about his exit from Coventry, and whether it was unfair or not. But obviously he is someone who's got a massive reputation in the Championship because he did an extraordinary job, him and his coaching staff, with the Sky Blue. So let's wait and see with that one, and with regards to what actually happened behind the scenes and whether it would be a good fit for Stoke City. Wagner's the other one, David Wagner, the former Norwich City and Huddersfield Town manager. That one's been a bit flat in terms of reaction. The reason why as well is because last season, Narcis Palak was first team coach under David Wagner. So people are like, really? Well, hang on, what? You've brought in the first team coach from Norwich and you're going to replace him with the guy that was his head coach last season, that was sacked by Norwich last season, and they kept not. So I think there's a little bit of that. It's like 2 + 2 = 5 there. So that's the current sort of fan disagreement, I'd say, with those two. They're the two that have been sort of reported the most strongly to have had interviews. I think Steve Cooper was one that I think any Championship side would want. I think if their position became available. Apparently he's not in contention. It would be great if he came, I think, for Stoke. I think, again, for the reasons why, because his success story with Nottingham Forest when he took over. Nottingham Forest, pretty similar side to Stoke in terms of rich owners, couldn't spend much, but he made the most of what he had. But it doesn't like he's coming in. Tony Mowbray is a name that's been linked, which I think a couple of years ago people would raise their eyebrows at and say, really? But I think he's done such a good job with Sunderland. He did a good job with Blackburn. He did a decent job with Birmingham in that short time he had before he was ill. He's an interesting one. And then the sort of the classic names that always get linked with Stoke. So David Moyes, people have been asked before. I don't think that's going to happen. I think someone suggested Tony Pulis coming back. That's just not going to happen. I think it will be a more established Championship manager this time, because I think they need someone that will get fans back on side. Because Johnny Walters is a Stoke City legend. I mean, he's one of the best players in Stoke City's Premier League year, especially longest serving as well. But a lot of fans have kind of turned on him right now. So I think he understands the importance of getting this next appointment right. And some fans are already not patient enough to let him make that decision. But he will. And I think there's got to be a bit of trust there that he's going to get this one right. I actually think the Narcis Palak appointment was brave, and I don't think he was ridiculous for doing it. I think he had a plan. It just hasn't worked. I think you have to hold your hands up and say, okay, well, you tried with this one. Let's what else you got up your sleeve.
Yeah, interesting times for the Potters. It's going to be interesting to see who you're getting. I am going to be keeping a close eye on that one. But I do actually want to talk about, obviously, I've mentioned Shawcross. He's in caretaker charge. He's took charge of one game. He beat Sunderland 1-0. Thank you, like I said earlier, for that. So that's a really good return so far. That's a 100% record in this caretaker spell. But just looking at the game, obviously, you won 1-0, but I know some people don't like XG, but I do think it's a good metric. 0.9 XG to Sunderland's 2.14. They had 55% possession. They had 22 shots, 7 on target to your 11 and 4. The stats tell the story. I know they don't always tell the full story. That Stoke were maybe a little bit fortuitous in the win. How would you? Obviously, I presume you saw the game. I presume you commented on the game. How would you have seen that game from a Stoke fan perspective watching it?
It was just a lot more exciting because I think the problem before was that under Narcis Palak, I mentioned that the whole point of the way he was trying to play was to eventually make them difficult to beat. You wouldn't perhaps get the most exciting football in the world unless you played a side like Portsmouth at the time, who they walked over. You'd have to be a bit more patient. Stoke fans aren't used to patience. Stoke fans are used to people getting stuck in, and Stoke fans are used to players sort of causing a bit of havoc and getting the crowd up for it. There was just no desire for the football that was being played under Palak. So the one thing Shawcross did was kind of go, right, handbrake off, our players play. And so it made it a lot more exciting. It made the game a lot more exciting. It was pretty end to end. Stoke had a fair amount of chances. You know, I think actually in terms of getting the ball into Sunderland's half, I think they did that just as well as Sunderland did, but Sunderland were closer with their chances onto Stoke's goal. I mentioned Victor Johansson earlier. I mean, he is without doubt. He was that early on the season. He's now front runner easily for player of the season, and he was the same for Rotherham. You know, without him, things would be a lot bleaker and a lot worse. But he had to do a lot of shot stopping against Sunderland. They won the game because of Victor Johansson. I do think that's fair to say. But I think what gives you a little advantage, whereas Sunderland didn't have that, is no one knew what Ryan Shawcross was going to do. He's not someone with any history or background of managing other sides. He also hasn't really had one day, so he wasn't able to sort of work in what he believed a Stoke City side should play or his Stoke City side should play. So I think what he did do essentially was they soaked up a lot of pressure. They countered really well, which they did well under Stephen Schumacher too. But they've got the players to do that. They didn't have the players to play how Narcis Palak wanted them. They've got a lot of fast-breaking players. Junior Shamadou, who's Stoke's young right-back, hasn't had the greatest of starts to his Stoke City career. He's 18 months in now. Had one of his best games against Sunderland. He was really, really good. He was bright. He was fast. He was going forward. Tom Cannon, Lewis Kumas, these two players that have excited Stoke fans early on in their loan spells at the club. They were given more freedom to move. I think if Sam Gallagher gets a chance to play a bit more against Burnley, of course, he'll be pretty hungry with his Blackburn connections. But he's someone that has a really nice partnership with Tom Cannon when they have played together, which has been few and far between. Even Wouter Berger, who's a fantastic footballer, had a great year last year, not so well this year under Narcis Palak again, but he was given a bit more freedom to go forward. And I think Wouter Berger, one of his best traits is a ball carrier, and kind of similar to how Josh Laurent should be used and has been used for Burnley in terms of getting into those spaces and making late runs into the box. He's good for all those sort of things. Players that have got the ability have been allowed to play a little bit more, because all Ryan Shawcross needs to do is go, okay, just play, enjoy yourself and just play. Pressure's off a little bit. And it's allowed those players with individual talent to just do their thing. Bae-Jun Ho, again, great player. I think he's player of the season last year. It's him or Wouter, player of the season last year. And he's had a bit of a slow start because the bloke didn't speak a word of English, came last year, and he's played under a Scotsman, a Scouser, and a Spaniard. I mean, he probably hasn't got a clue what's going on. And now he's played under a Shawcross. So I think he just got play your game. Just play your game. And so not the most dangerous sort of tactically, not the most intelligent tactically in terms of what he's had chance to work on, Shawcross, but they have got some really good individuals in there, and they were just allowed to do what their instincts were telling them. So I think, and Ryan Shawcross, a fantastic defender, made Stoke slightly more solid defensively because they weren't doing as much zonal marking this time, which helped a lot.
I think the thing that stood out for me there was Shawcross has come in and said handbrake off. I think most Burnley fans, my ears pricked up when you said that, and I think a lot of Burnley fans' ears pricked up when you said that, because it's no secret that we've struggled at Turf Moor compared to away from home. Draws 0-0 at home to Derby, 0-0 at home to QPR, so many 0-0s, and 0-0 away at Oxford. Teams that have just sat in compact and said, break us down. We can't do it. Middlesbrough did it slightly the other day at the Riverside, but then did step onto us at certain points. How do you think you're going to play at Turf Moor? Because it worries Burnley. I've been looking at these run of games and I've been thinking, I'm quite worried about that Stoke one, actually, because I'm worried that Stoke will come to the turf and just sit in and just sit deep. Obviously, you then have just said handbrake off. So are you expecting Stoke to come to the turf and do a similar thing than you did to Sunderland? Or are you expecting to be a little bit more compact and then maybe be more compact than you was against Sunderland, but then counter-attack us as well as you did against Sunderland?
They're not going to have much time to plan for it. So I don't really know what they can expect Stoke to do other than what they did against Sunderland. I'd be surprised if it was a complete gear shift from what Ryan Shawcross had them doing. That they've not got much time. It's 1 or 2 days of preparation going into the game against yourselves on New Year's Day. So I think it'll be a little bit more of the same. The problem is that Burnley will offer a very different game to what Sunderland offer, and so I think there's going to have to be a little bit of tweaking, and I've no doubt that the coaches that are still there, Alex Morris and Dean Whitehead, will be putting in the hard yards to assess where they can counter you best. But Ryan Shawcross is very much an outsider for the job. I mean, I don't think he's really in consideration for it. I think he knows that as well. So I think he can kind of have fun with this a little bit. One thing he said when he's been in interim charge for 2 games this season, one after Shuey left and one after Narcisse left at the weekend, is that he just loved it so much. He enjoyed it so much. So I don't think he's going to want to just play a sort of boring chess match. I think he's going to want to see it as an audition for himself for other jobs potentially. Prove that, you know, he's a man with that plays exciting football. So I expect that Stoke will go for it a little bit more than they would have done under Palach, but it's really tricky to say, because he's going to have 1 day of training, and whilst they also still need to sort of counter what Burnley do best, which we saw against you at the Bet365 Stadium.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. It's going to be interesting to see how we set up as well. Not how we set up, but the team that we select. I do think we looked quite leggy up at Middlesbrough the other day, but you'd expect that over the Christmas period. And obviously 3 or 4 days after New Year's, we've got quite a big game away at Ewood Park. So I think most Burnley fans would rather win that match if you could choose one match. So I think Scott Parker will have an eye on that as well, because it's a tough place to go. Even though we did win the league there a couple of years ago, it's still a tough place to go. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how we plan for both games. I would like to see a couple of people taken out the side, not necessarily rested, and not necessarily not respecting Stoke as much, but keeping like half an eye on that one. So it's interesting. I do actually, though, you mentioned his name already. I do want to mention Josh Laurent, simply because obviously I've spoke to Stoke fans before the Stoke game at the Bet365. So I don't want to go into him too much, but there was a bit of a backlash, and I want to talk about the backlash from the Stoke City fans. I can't remember who wrote an article, or it might have just been a tweet from a journalist, like a local Stoke journalist, sort of like criticising the way that Lorenz celebrated after the match. I think I was looking at it as a Burnley point of view, thinking he didn't do that much wrong, but there was that point where he was pushed into the thing where the Burnley fans go, Ray, and he kind of like I felt like he looked a little bit awkward, but then just went with it anyway. What were your thoughts on it? Because I did think that was a little bit much from I can't remember who it was. Like I said, it might have been a journalist, it might have just been a fan, but it was a little bit much of an overreaction to see Josh Laurent celebrate in that way. Because I don't think he really had his heart in that celebration. I thought he was kind of forced into it. But what were your thoughts?
I felt for Josh Laurent a little bit, because he's not had a fantastic career at Stoke City. But I would say over the course of his time there, he probably was one of Stoke's better performers, especially the latter stage of his first season when Alex Neil came in. He was phenomenal. And then didn't have quite as good a season last year, but with the chopping and the change and the lack of sort of form of Stoke City, I don't think anyone would have expected him to do that. But he divides fans for some reason. I'm not too sure why, because again, he's never had a horror show. But some people just sort of weren't fans of him. And so I think those that were glad to see him go, those that weren't keen on him, were a lot more vocal about it on social media and such on after the game, and actually during the game. I mean, the amount of times that he got booed, and there was, there was chance. I won't swear on this, but there was chance of the W on at the game, and I was like, what? Why are you doing that? I didn't want to poke the bear, but I did almost think of tweeting and just saying, what are you doing? Why are we doing that? Because he never left with a big issue. I actually thought that the reaction to when he left was quite positive in terms of the fact that they were glad, they were sort of grateful for the time he spent at the club. He was the captain as well. I just think it's almost turned into, I hate to see you doing well. It's like when an ex that you break up with on good terms, but then she moves on pretty quick and she's happy with someone else, and you kind of thinking, actually, I don't like you now. It's a bit of jealousy, perhaps. I don't really know. He's a real divider. But so is Tyrese Campbell, who's doing fantastically well for one of your other promotion rivals in Sheffield United. He really splits the fan base, and he got a load of pelters when Stoke went to Bramall Lane. So I just think it's this weird thing that Stoke fans have with former players, and more times than not they get a little bit of stick. But you know what? I don't think Josh would have celebrated at all if he didn't get any stick. But
exactly that. Yeah, I feel like sometimes
do that if he's getting a stick. Why not? It's just a game at the end of the day.
Exactly that. I do feel like sometimes people forget footballers are human as well. And if you're going to spend 90 minutes calling someone that, then there's going to be a release of emotion if they get what they've come for.
I'm surprised, Joe. I think he would have been a bit surprised by the reaction. I mean, he's got social media. He's quite active on social media. So he'll have more of an idea than anyone else about the feelings that Stoke fans have towards him. But I just thought it was just unnecessary is probably the word I'd use to sum it up. My personal opinion, I just didn't think that reaction was justified to how Stoke fans have reacted to other former players, where I'm never someone that's going to agree with booing personally, but it's been more understandable for former players other than Josh Laurent. It was interesting.
Yeah, completely agree. I wasn't expecting it, but I completely agree. I was only going to do around 20 minutes of a chat because, like I said, I spoke to a Stoke fan only like 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, whatever it was. But obviously, working in broadcast, you're obviously a very good talker. So we'll start wrapping it up, mate.
As well, it's just,
yeah.
A case study would be fascinating on it for anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I guess something in your job that could be something that you could do as well. To be fair, but a couple of things before we do wrap it up. Predictions, please, mate.
So I did head and heart with Sunderland because I really had no idea. My head said 1-1, my heart said 1-0, and I feel like I wanted a repeat of that again. I mean, there's no realism in this, by the way, as well, because I don't think there's any realism with Stoke City. They can always throw a surprise when you least expect it, both positively and negatively. So I'll go for my heart because it was right last time. I said they can maybe sneak a 1-0 win away from home, especially with the sort of the games that you've had to play recently, and it may it may have taken its toll a little bit. You've got Ewood Park, as I mentioned, coming up as well. I'll stick with our side, and I'll go 1-0. But it wouldn't surprise me if it was 1-0, 1-1, 1-0 to you. Like I think it's going to be a low scoring affair.
Yeah, I completely agree. All of our games are low-scoring affairs. I've been saying on the podcast every week, if you put under 2.5 on, if you are that way inclined, you'd probably be a millionaire by now over the course of the season. We haven't conceded more than one goal in a game, and I think there's only been one occasion where a couple of occasions now, obviously thinking about the Sheffield United game, but there's not been too many where we've scored more as well. So obviously low-scoring games for the majority of Burnley games. I'm the same as you, but opposite. I'm thinking 1-0 to Burnley. I'm thinking it's going to be another leggy performance probably because we'll have half an eye in Ewood Park. You've played a lot of games recently. I would suspect you put a lot of energy into that Sunderland game as well. So I'm hoping that you come to the turf with a little bit of legginess in your legs, a little bit of tiredness in your legs, should I say. But I think judging from the game up at the Riverside, I think we will be similar. And I think Scott Parker should tweak it slightly because of how tired we looked against Middlesbrough and because of Ewood Park coming up, but hopefully he doesn't tweak it too much to a point where it's such a weak inside that we do, of course, lose the match. And And the other thing I always end the show with is, do you want to let everyone know where they can find you and your content? But I guess we know that you work for BBC Radio Stoke now, so I don't know how to end that. But you said earlier you're doing podcasts and stuff, and Stoke City podcasts. So where can they find them and what they're called?
So it's exclusively on BBC Sounds, our Stoke City podcast. We do it after every Stoke game. We'll do one after Burnley, which is just called a Cold Wet Tuesday Night. It's on BBC Sounds. It's myself and yeah, it's great. It's the only name that was available left. To be fair, there's a lot of Stoke City podcasts and a lot of names were pinched, but I'm pretty happy with the Cold Wet Tuesday Night. But it's myself and a data analyst who's also a Stoke City fan, which helps, called Potalytics. So yeah, it's one to listen to if you like a view from the opposition after a game.
Yeah, well, I certainly do tend to check in with the opposition. Not so much if they've beaten us, but I might have a listen in if we've won, which I did the other day after we'd beaten Sheffield United. So Jimmy the Blade, if you're watching this, I did have a listen to that wins that you had. But Lucas, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure. I actually wish Stoke City the best of luck. I don't think you'll go down. I think you'll be okay, even if you get this next managerial appointment wrong. Having said that, Oxford did win the other day, and some teams down there have started picking up points. But I think Stoke will be okay. So good luck for the rest of the season, just after New Year's Day.
Thanks, mate. And well, I'm rooting for Burnley as well. I enjoyed watching Burnley in the Premier League. I know it's going to be a very different side if you do go up this year compared to what you're doing now and what you're doing then. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Burnley. So up the Clarets.
Love it, mate. Cheers.